So then when you have someone like Ted Cruz, okay, who has been outspoken, defending the principles of a more traditional Republican Party, elevating the ideas of Reagan, of the Bushes, of John McCain, of Mitt Romney. When Ted Cruz and others do it, though, they rarely say outright, this is, we can't follow Donald Trump here. They just talk about the ideas because they want to keep on the good side of MAGA. They want to avoid the wrath of MAGA. But make no mistake, Ted Cruz, when he talks about don't fire, don't pressure, don't use the FCC to pressure Colbert. These tariffs are really damaging to the economy in Texas. Or when he says, this is a dangerous thing to interfere with these investments, demanding money from these corporations, Cruz and others. This is about saying the populist fervor has gone too far on some issues. It's taken the Republican Party too far afield. Same on the Democratic side. We see now this revolt against Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader, and the shutdown strategy that failed in the minds of so many on the left. That's also about a longer term fight between the populists and the establishment. The populists and the party have tried to change things. That began, again, in earnest in 2016 when Bernie Sanders ran for the Democratic nomination. And the reality is, if the Democratic Party had, in a crooked way, changed the rules, rigged the game to stop Sanders from winning, I think he would have been the Democratic nominee. He got pretty close to beating Hillary Clinton. And had he won, 2016 would have featured not one, but two major party nominees nominating outsiders, populist outsiders, neither of whom were members of the party up until the time they filed to run that year. And certainly neither of them, both at the time and now, true insiders in any way in their tribes, two outsiders. Democrats now have been doing for a long time what Republicans are now going through regarding Israel, okay, and regarding America's support for Israel, and regarding these allegations of anti-Semitism. But just as that is a stand-in on the Republican side, on the Democratic side too, it's a stand-in for this deeper fight, this deeper, more profound fight, a clash between those who want continuity, want the establishment to continue to be in charge, and those who are demanding change. And now you see, as the 2028 presidential campaign starts to form, some people, not very many, but some people in the party are saying this leftward lurch that we've engaged in on cultural issues, on economics, on crime, on the border, it's destroying the Democratic brand. It's destroying the party. You got to give Rahm Emanuel credit, former congressman, former mayor of Chicago, former Obama chief of staff. He's tepidly, not full-throatedly, but he's out there leading the way for the establishment to push back and say, we will not be a broad-based party. We will not be a majority party. We will not win the White House regularly if we don't push back against political correctness, woke orthodoxy, things like trans policy or policing. And we've got to be more centrist on those things. And then also on the economy, this abundance agenda that a bunch of Democrats, some more moderate, some not, saying we need to be the party of economic growth. We need the party who can build things, big public infrastructure, housing, et cetera. These are all attempts to reclaim the image of the Democratic Party, the way Bill Clinton did, Barack Obama did to some extent, as a party that's pro-growth and that's centrist, to take that ground away because they want to win elections in the middle. And the establishment believes that the populists are too far to the left to do right by the party. The emotion, the factionalism you see on the left now, that is being mirrored in the turmoil that we see on the right. This huge debate, which some people try to play down, they say it's an inside game. And to some extent it is. Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson and the Heritage Foundation trying to get right with what they believe about anti-Semitism, et cetera. This is the same, but it's just in a different key. The left and the right, the symmetry is there's a fight over Israel, there's a fight over anti-Semitism, but that's not what this is really about. So Gerard Baker, he's a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. He's nailed all this in his column this week. It's part of what got me to do some more reporting because he's a charter member of the establishment. He writes this, he says, the rise of populism, he's talking about the right here, but it applies to both. The rise of populism has been characterized by a liberalization of thought and speech once suppressed by prevailing orthodoxies. But with this liberation, inevitably came a wider unleashing of much uglier sentiments. So in Baker's view, and again, this is the establishment view, sure, there's some positive things to populism on the right, but it's empowered people to say and do things that are dangerous, that are alarming. And again, Baker's talking about, as an establishment guy, he's talking about Republicans, the party he thinks about more. But it's true on the left, okay? Baker writes in his column about J.D. Vance. And a lot of people in the establishment on the right, they've given up on Trump. Trump is Trump. Trump's going to be an anti-establishment populist who pursues policies that are antithetical to the Reagan, Bush, Romney, McCain wing of the party. And so Baker's leaning forward and saying, okay, Trump will be Trump for the next couple of years, but we need to think about a post-Trump conservatism. Can the party at that point return to Reagan? Just as a lot of Democrats now, in thinking about 2028, say, can they go back to what for them is the sort of more moderate centrist establishment time of Bill Clinton, of Barack Obama? That's their comfort zone in the Democratic establishment. For the Republicans at this point, it's anything pre-Trump. They'd be comfortable with Reagan, with Bush, with Romney. The Democrats want to go back. And so for a lot of centrist Democrats, what was heartening for them last Tuesday, they didn't like the anti-establishment victory by Mamdani in New York, but they loved Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, the two Democrats who won governorships races in New Jersey and Virginia, because they're establishment sweethearts. Their optics are just right. They're trying to stay right with the populism and with the anti-Trumpism, but their substance, their style is of the old order. They're pragmatic. They have national security credentials. They're trying to build healthy economies in a more establishment way. But notice that neither of them really in their campaigns or on election night, neither of them called out the populist left any more than Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have. They do not want to put themselves in the line of fire. Nobody in the establishment really wants to take on that fight because, and again, it's symmetrical with the Republicans. They don't want to, Ted Cruz doesn't want to fight Donald Trump over MAGA. They want to try to finesse things back. And so Democrats are really excited to have those two Democrats who, they're liberals, but they're establishment liberals, okay? So they model an establishment conduct that got rhetorical nods to the far left. They carefully talked during the campaign somewhat awkwardly about trans issues. They play the "we'll fight Trump" card strong because that unites the party, but no open warfare with the base. And again, it's the same on the right. The symmetry is Ted Cruz will critique Donald Trump's corporate bulleting or his tariff policy or his use of the FCC to try to limit free speech, but he's not taking on Trump himself, okay? Nobody wants to get eaten on either side. There's another symmetry. They don't get eaten by the populist tiger. They know the populists have their pitchforks and they don't want to be attacked, but they do want their party to be more to the center, and they do want more establishment. They want the establishment to keep its power. For the people who are critical of the populists, right? They're saying just enough to try to nudge things back. Better to be an establishment globalist than to open your mouth and say what you really think and confirm it and become a target of the far left, the populist far right. Chuck Schumer is maybe the poster child for what's going on right now in the Democratic Party. Classic establishment figure, been in Congress forever, doesn't speak the language of the populists, worried about the rising power of AOC, quite obviously, never endorsed Mamdani in the New York mayor's race, even though he lives in New York, he's from New York. And he's had happened to him now because he's not figured out how to tame the populists on the blue side. He's now become Mitch McConnell. He's now dealing with exactly what McConnell dealt with. And so the MSNBC wing of the Democrats, the blue sky wing, they're starting to think of him like McConnell. Symbols of everything that they want to overthrow. Everything. Too establishment, too orthodox, not willing to fight Trump hard enough. And then on the right, you've got, as I said, people like Gerard Baker, who are looking to J.D. Vance much more closely than they are Trump on these issues related to anti-Semitism in Israel, but more broadly. Because while, as I said, they've given up on Trump, they do see Vance as potentially redeemable, a bridge back potentially to the Reagan wing of the party, right? So on this Tucker Carlson flap with Fuentes, more than a flap. Trump and Vance have been relatively quiet. They're not looking to be out front on it. But Baker, in his column in the Journal, Wall Street Journal, he focuses on Vance, and he suggests that Vance is being naive about what's going on. This isn't just about platforming Fuentes. It isn't just about language and words. Here's what he writes more in the column. Mr. Vance's breezy dismissal of the struggle to extirpate extremists from the right-wing coalition as infighting is a mistake. What we saw at Heritage last week was the latest episode in the struggle of good against evil. So Baker's view, again, represents the establishment. These fights are not just about Israel, not just about anti-Semitism. They're about good and evil. They're profound. And Baker associates the dark side of the populace with evil. Same thing happens on the right. Okay? The stakes here are just massive. And this is another symmetry. The stakes are massive. Because this is not just about one off-year election or about how the government shutdown ends. And it's not just, as I've said, it's not just about Israel and anti-Semitism. This is about power in America. Who has it, who wants it, and who's willing to burn down the existing houses to get it. Right now, today, again, this huge asymmetry. One party, the Republicans and the conservatives, they orbit around a single person. And the other party has no center of gravity at all. They're formless, leaderless. But both sides, and this is the symmetry, they're caught between populism, the rise of technology that's unleashed forces that we still don't fully understand, and then the collapse of the party machinery, the collapse of the ability of the two political parties to enforce what they want. We're watching America's politics now every day, and we've seen it in the last week, being remade by these two twin revolts. They're both mirror images of each other and polar opposites at the same time. And what we're finding is that the future is completely unknown. Future of the Republican Party after Donald Trump, the future of Chuck Schumer, and the future of both party establishments. There's efforts in both parties to push back, partly because of the dangers of the extremists in the populist side, but also because the establishment wants to keep its power. They don't want to give up the power to other people, to a different wing of the party. This fight is at the center of everything that's happening right now. And you can see almost every political development that's coming next up. The midterms, the presidential jockeying. Who is going to try to harness the power of the populists? Who's going to try to own that on the Republican side, the MAGA movement? On the Democratic side, the Sanders, AOC wing of the party. Who's going to try to ride that to power? And who's going to stand up to it and say, you know what, that isn't the right way to govern. And in some cases, that's an evil way to govern. That's the debate. That's the fight. We'll watch it here together. You ever notice those creepy ads that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been, what you've bought, even maybe what you've been talking about? You probably asked yourself, is my phone monitoring me? The truth is, your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge and without your consent. Every day, your phone builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people you communicate with. And that information is funneled into an invisible marketplace where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold off to the highest bidder. It's not just something that's annoying, it's invasive. And it's happening all the time. But now there's a new solution, the Up Phone by Unplugged, because it's very different. It's designed to protect your privacy from the ground up. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control. Whether you're texting, browsing, or using apps, the Up Phone ensures your personal information stays personal. It's the phone for people who are done being watched. Ready to take back your digital privacy? Visit unplug.com/Mark and get $25 off a phone case with the purchase of a phone. Again, go to unplug.com/Mark because your life, your data, it should be yours, not theirs. Plus, from Election Day through Veterans Day, Unplugged is honoring those who serve. All veterans and active duty military get $175 off any Up Phone, and they're donating $50 from each purchase to support veterans charity Valor Mission Project. Learn more and order your Up Phone today at unplug.com/Mark. Get this today.